Lori Houston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Lori now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today, well, it is the last Tuesday of the month, which means I have my awesome co-host Tom Campbell with me. We've been doing some amazing shows. Lately I don't know, we're picking the right topics, but everybody is very happy, and I think they're great topics. So today I want to bring up something that I've tried to bring up in the past, and I'm not sure how well it's been either received or understood, but we tend right now, as much as I don't exactly understand it, I sort of do. There's a lot of people that are still really angry, a lot of bullies still out there, which I don't understand. A lot of victim mentality. And I guess partly it was because somebody said something I thought was very profound, it's not that I hadn't heard it before, but everybody just wants to be loved. And we just want to love. But the bullies, they have a learned behavior. They've had a learned definition of what love is, probably from a relationship with their parents or whatever. We can't blame the parents. They did the best they could. We're doing the best we can. But we get kind of caught up in a cycle when we feel a certain trigger, whether it's powerless or something we're trying to control. And instead of making a choice that is beneficial and positive and loving, we automatically go back into that fear response, which, is unfortunate. And there's so much going on right now. And I guess maybe people are picking up the energy of, the war type energy if they're sensitive. I'm finding it really challenging. And I know that there was a comment made that Donna had done, and her message was beautiful, but somebody got triggered. And when you're triggered, it's like you can't see the other side. You're really caught up, and it's hard. And so I thought maybe today we would go through some maybe exercises to help people to understand, when we get triggered, there's an automatic response, and then there's one that we can choose. And it's about choosing, love instead of fear. Take it away, Tom, because I know you're dying to get in here.
Well, the two opposite ends here are love and fear.
Yes.
And all the bad behavior is fear-based behavior. All the good behavior is love-based behavior. So it would seem rather simple. If you would like to be in a loving, happy, joyful situation, then you would try very hard to be love-based, because that's the way it is when you're love-based. You live in a very nice space and you have a good life. And when you're fear-based, you're miserable, and you don't live in a good space, and you have a terrible life. And it doesn't matter how much money you have in either of those situations. If you are caring and loving and dirt poor, you have a good life and you're happy and everything is fine. And if you've got more money than you could figure out how to spend, but you are full of fear, you're going to be miserable and unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So all the rest of the details, like economic conditions and so on, are irrelevant.
Yeah.
It depends on you. Now, your environment's not irrelevant. You happen to be in a war zone, well, life is just difficult. You're reduced at that point just to thinking about survival.
Right.
Not much more than survival. How can I get from one day to the next? How can I and my family get to tomorrow all in one piece? And that's about all you have time to think about. It's, life is kind of reduced to that question. So that's a different thing. So we're not going to talk about that. That's a special case. And right now, there's probably thousands of people who are in that special case, but there's, you know, almost 9 billion of us, and most of us are not. That's still
But
a
we
small
might have
fraction.
family there. We might have, what that we're worried about. But
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
I
And we don't want to discount those people. I mean, I'm not saying, well, we'll just forget about them because they're the minority. No.
yeah.
Yeah, they're very dear to us, and we should think about them because those are the ones that need help.
Yes.
Those are the ones that need our help most. But in any case, let's just talk about love and fear and that dynamic in a person. Now, here's something that maybe many of our listeners haven't really considered, um, particularly as they look at themselves and try to understand themselves and the people around them. And that is that each of us comes with a capacity to love. We all don't have the same capacity to love.
Interesting.
And that capacity to love is inversely related to the fear.
Mm.
So if you have a whole lot of fear, you have a small capacity to love.
Mm.
And if you have very little fear, you have a very large capacity to love. So if some people, you may find them to be loving and caring in some ways, but still very self centered in other ways. Well, probably what you're seeing is pretty much all the love they have to offer,
Mm.
and that self centeredness is the fear that's preventing them from loving more deeply or more authentically. And you'll find that a lot of the good behavior in people like that isn't coming from the heart so much as it's coming from the intellect. They
Mm.
know they should be nice. They know they need to be polite. They know they need to not go off and get upset. They know that there's things they should say and shouldn't say. So their intellect kind of helps them be nice,
Right.
but their capacity to love is just limited. So we look out at the world and we see all this stuff going on, and we wonder how these people, that's what the Beatles song said, right? All you need is love, right? And we think about that and say, well, that's so simple. Why don't they just start looking for love and being love? But it doesn't work that way. The capacity to love is not there
Mm.
because there's so much fear there. The one turns into the other. If you get rid of all your fear, you are love. You don't have to fill that pot full of love. That's what you have left if you don't have the fear, you see. And if you fill your pot full of fear, there's not much room for much love to enter there. So it's not like everybody has the same capacity to love, and some people do it well, and other people just don't seem to be able to get it. It's not really like that. We all have our own capacity for love.
I like that.
And that depends then on our fear. So when you look at these people and you look at the bullies and so on, and why is a bully a bully? A bully is a bully because he's insecure. He's afraid. He's insecure. He thinks people won't like him. He thinks people won't care for him. People won't love him. He's not lovable. And he gets that opinion from who knows where. He gets that opinion from his parents or his peers in school who can be really ruthless and hateful. He gets that opinion someplace, but anyway, he believes it.
Right.
And once he believes it, he has some choices to deal with that. How do you deal with feeling insecure, with feeling unlovable? Well, there's a couple of ways to deal with it. Actually, there's many ways to deal with it. One is you become the shrinking violet. You just stay in the corner and don't socialize much and keep to yourself. And then there's the arrogant, bully who is just the opposite of that. You get in people's faces and you push other people around because your logic is that if I don't play, I can't lose. You've probably heard me say that before. That's a standard strategy for dealing with fear. If I don't play, I can't lose. So in their minds, if I tried to be friendly, And when people just walked away from me because I'm inferior, because I'm not good enough to love, I tried to be loving, I tried to be caring, I tried to make friends, and everybody snubbed me and pushed me away because I'm not worthy, then that would be horrible and I wouldn't be able to stand that.
Right.
But if I go out and am rude and push people around and they don't like me, I can stand that because I know why they don't like me. It's because of my behavior. And I behave that way on purpose so I don't have to deal with the one where I try hard to love and to care and get rejected. You see, so that's the, you know, I can't lose if I don't play. Well, I'm not going to play the be nice game. I'm not going to play the make friends game because if I get rejected, that would just hurt so much. I couldn't stand it. So I'll be the bully, I'll be rude, I'll be pushy, I'll be arrogant, and people won't like me, but that's okay. They don't have to like me. And it's not because I'm inadequate. It's not because I'm not lovable. It's because I'm nasty and I'm rude. That's why people don't like me. And I can accept that. You see, you can live with that. You can't live with, I try to be friendly and people reject me.
Right.
That you can't live with. So that's what's going on in our minds. So the bullies are bullies because they're very insecure. And they don't think that, they believe that people will not like them, that they're unlovable, that they don't have value, they're valueless. And that could come from something trivial that they just mistook the meaning in some family situation where whatever, or it could come from a family that's busy all the time and they're told to sit down and be quiet because nobody has time to be with them. And if that's all you hear, sit down and be quiet, well, pretty soon you feel unlovable. People just don't like you. So it could be for things like that are just plain vanilla. They happen all the time, every day. Or they could be that, when you were 6 years old in public school, the gang kids, beat you up and took your lunch money every day, and that makes you feel like you're not valuable. So there's any reasons, or maybe your parents were drug addicts, you could just go on and on and on, you live in poverty or this and that, there's all these reasons. But the way that people deal with that feeling of being not good enough. Now, how you deal with it is what matters. See, it doesn't really matter whether you got that because your parents were druggies or you were poor or, you grew up in the tenements or, your parents got run over by a cement truck when you were 3 and you were raised by your, stepsister or something.
Yeah.
You can come up with all this stuff, but none of that matters so much. What really matters is how do you deal with it? You see? And if you deal with it by saying, well, I can't lose if I don't play. I'm not going to try to be nice. I'm not going to try to get relationship. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get powerful and nobody will mess with me. I'm going to be the biggest bully, or I'm going to have more money than anybody so that I'm powerful. And then nobody can bother me. And if they do, I have the means to get rid of them. So now you feel valuable, sort of. Your ego tells you that you're valuable because you have all this money, or you're big and have a lot of muscles or whatever. Your ego tells you, oh yeah, you're valuable. You got all this money or you got big muscles and you can push everybody around. So yeah, you're something special. But that's just your ego. And deep down, that's a lie. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you really feel very small, very inadequate, and very worthless. So that's why we have this. And partly it's our culture. Our culture does not put a very high value on raising children. Raising children just get raised however they do. They get raised in daycare. They get raised, by babysitters. They get raised by grandmothers and uncles and aunts and anybody who'll take them. That's who ends up raising them. And we just don't put a high value on that. We don't say, oh, raising children. Now that's really important. Let's focus on that. How can we make sure that each one of our kids really is attended to and has their most basic needs met, like a need to be seen and to be heard and to be dealt with as a person, to have value as a person, not just something that needs to be put off because everybody's too busy. So our culture creates people who feel insecure,
Yeah.
particularly females have a problem because, we had about 40 years of feminism that told women that they needed to be this way, they needed to be that way, they shouldn't be the other way, and we had the culture telling all of these ladies how to be, how they needed to be, what was the right way to be. Well, that's not helpful. People are who they are. And if you tell them to be something they're not, they just feel inadequate. They feel like they're not good enough. Well, the way we deal with females also is that, every female should look like an 18-year-old supermodel, right? That's the idea. You need to be beautiful. You need to be attractive and sexy and alluring and, whatever that's necessary. Well, that just doesn't suit every female. That's just not the way they feel. It's just not the way they are. But that's the way they should be, is what the culture says. And then the culture says, but you shouldn't actually really be alluring or sexy or any of those things because that's not good. Only bad girls are like that. But you need to be this way because,
Yeah.
right. So we tell our females, that this is up and that's down, and then we switch it and
Yeah.
give them, because they get so many messages of what they're supposed to be and what they're not supposed to be, that growing up whole and growing up what where you really know who you are, what you are, and why you are being authentic is really, really difficult when you grow up in a society that tries to convince you that you need to be this way or that way, rather than a society that says, be however you are.
Right.
We love diversity. Be however you are. There's all sorts of ways that females can be, and all sorts of ways that males can be. They don't have to be like this or like that. You can be yourself and still be valued, be loved, be cared for. See, now that's a society that cares about children. Ours doesn't really. Our society doesn't put high value on raising children. So we raise a lot of children who are very insecure. And that insecurity comes out in, I can prove to myself I'm valuable because I have more money than anybody else. Well, you might, but you don't have happiness.
Right.
You don't have satisfaction because you burned all of that on your way to get more money than everybody else. So it's a sad thing, but our culture right now is a very difficult place to grow up. Mm-hmm. And we have plenty. You and I, our, Western culture, Western world, first world countries, or whatever they're called, most all the citizens have enough. Even the ones that are poor generally have enough. Very few people, can't get in out of the rain. Very few people can't find warmth in the winter or even cool in the summer. Most people can get along and do reasonably well. Most, the fat part of the curve. There's always those out in the tails of the curve that are exceptions, but most people can do pretty good, particularly if you look what life was like for people, say, 500 years ago. I mean, we live in luxury. Even the poorest of the poor live in luxury compared to what people lived in just even 200 or 300 years ago. Yeah. So as far as what we have plenty. as a species. The human race has plenty, of resources. And that's not what makes us unhappy. What makes us unhappy is what we believe about ourselves. Our belief. We believe we're not very good, that we should be better. We're not lovable. We're not valuable. We're insecure about all sorts of things. So that's where all this comes from. So if you look around and see all the dysfunction, all the anger, the hate, the misery, well, those are a bunch of miserable people for the most part. Frightened, miserable people. And frightened people are very attracted to scary things. They're attracted to anything that might hurt them or bite them or get them. So when you have a lot of frightened people, you have people that are, have certain characteristics. One, they're easy to manipulate. All you have to do is understand their fear, and then you can play to that fear, and you can get them to dance any tune you want. They're easy to manipulate. Two, they are quick to join like crowds, people like them, because they find safety in numbers. So a whole bunch of frightened people tend to seek each other out and tell scary stories to each other. Most of those scary stories turn out to be conspiracies. These people are going to get us, and those people are going to get us, and the landlords here, they rip everybody off, and they do this and that, and so they form kind of mutual defense pacts or whatever among their brethren who are also feeling insecure. It doesn't matter that insecurity is just basically emotional. It's a belief they have. Enough to eat. They have a house to live in. They have all the essentials, much more than people had 100 years ago. But that's not it. It's not about life isn't, it's too hard. It's the unfairness of it all. It's the concept of not getting your fair share and others taking advantage of you. It's all about what others are doing to you, and poor little you stuck in the middle, between big government and big advertising and big, legal system and big, all that big stuff just pushes you around all the time. So then we get this idea of it's us against them. And the us are on all sides. Side A, that's us. And we're against them. We're against side B. And side B, that's us. And we're against them. So it's us against them everywhere. And we point fingers at each other, blame each other for everything that's wrong. But that's really not what's wrong. It's not that the big people, the governments, the institutions, the legal system, it's not that all of those are conspiring against you or to manipulate you. I mean, that may be. They may be conspiring against you, but that's not the point. That's not what the problem is. Right. That's not what makes you miserable and unhappy. That's just what you blame it on, because you can't stand to look at the truth, which is, I'm of low value. That's what you think is the truth. That's not actually the truth, though. It's just what you believe to be the truth. But you can't stand to look at that. You can't stand to admit that. That's very painful to say, it's me, I'm not worthy. But that's what you feel like deep inside. And that makes you angry. You get angry when you feel that way. And then you say, all those people, they make me feel this way. They're taking advantage of me. And that's what we have. So yes, it's true. What everybody needs is love. What everybody wants is to love and to be loved. That's a universal thing. But that has to start when you're very young. You can't start that, in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. You have to grow up feeling not that your physical needs are met, oh, well, I had a meal every day and clothes to wear, so I should feel great. No, your physical needs may be met, but that's not what makes you feel valued. Is if people really want you and care about you and see you as an individual, they're concerned about your preferences. You're not just taken wherever the parents want to go, but the parents ask you, where would you like to go today? What would you like to do? So you're valued as a person in a family rather than not. Our culture has maybe gotten some better. Well, at least for a while. Maybe it's gotten some worse, but it used to be that the children were best seen and not heard.
Mm.
Children were kind of second-class citizens in their own home. They were to be quiet. They were to do what they were told. They would not talk back. They would not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what was actually that all summed up to be, they were to be little adults.
Right.
Because nobody had time to mess with them. They're so messy. They don't know what they want. They want everything. So what they need to do is just be quiet and do what we tell them. Well, that's what slaves do.
Mm.
That's what indentured servants do. Well, I guess that's what servants do in general. Whoever pays you tells you what to do, and you do it, and you're quiet. You don't say things they don't want to hear. You see, so our work life is often like that.
Mm.
Our boss doesn't want to hear our opinions. It just wants us to do what we're told. Do it the way we're told. Now, the higher level up you go, the more technical, the more expertise you have, the less that's true.
Mm.
The more you're valued for what you know, for what you can create, for the problems you can solve. But that's probably the 10% of the population. The 90% of the population works someplace where they're told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and they don't want to hear anything, from the peanut gallery. So that's typically the way most people have to work. And that's just more the way it was at home. So that just, reinforces the I'm not worth much. And when you're not worth much, you make up all these stories, you get very fearful, and then you just have tons of fear that you have to work with. You've got buttons all over you. When people push them, you go off and go crazy, when they push your button, because you're just full of buttons. That's because you're full of fear. And whenever anybody says something like that indicates at all that you didn't do something right, or that you're wrong, or that your belief is wrong, or your attitude's wrong, or what your clothes you're wearing are wrong, or anything else, you just go ballistic, because that implies that being wrong means you're not good enough.
Mm.
And that resonates with that core problem there. So you don't want to be told you're not right. You don't want to be told that there's some other viewpoint. You don't want to hear anybody else's viewpoint, because your rightness is partly, your ego is pretending to rightness because of your beliefs, because you've got these beliefs and you've got these friends that have similar beliefs, and nobody needs to mess with us, you see. So you've got this tight little community, and you're not open, and you don't want any diversity. You want everybody to be like you. That's the only solution to the problem. Everybody needs to be just like you, and then the problem would be solved. Everybody on all sides feels the same way.
It's so true.
So you see what a mess we have, but it's not going to change very much until I think we start to become better parents. We start to care, more about our kids than we do about getting that promotion. We tend to give our kids value, listen to them, listen to what they have to say. What happens is that, when we do ask, well, how was your day at school today? all you'll get is fine.
Right.
That's all you're going to get because they already know that you really don't care what the skill was. They know that. That's not why they're asking. They're trying to be polite. They're trying to include you, but it's coming all from the intellect. It's not sincere. They know they should pay attention to their children, so they use their intellects to be nice and to pretend that they're interested. Oh, how was your school today, dear? And dear is perfectly aware that that's an insincere question.
That's true.
And so they say, fine, and just do something else because it's not really a question. They really don't want to know what that child did during the day. Oh, Susie and I got together and we planned that when we grow up, we're going to learn how to fly, and they don't want to hear any of that. That's just nonsense. Never mind. I really don't want to know what you did today because the things they did today aren't interesting to adults because adults are too self-centered to be interested in a couple of little girls wanting to grow up and fly. You see, rather than saying, oh, really? Fly? Oh, well, that would be fun. Where are you going to fly to? Maybe you're talking to a 6-year-old, The people are too busy to engage and really want to know what's going on in their kids' heads. So the kid says, fine. And that's the end of it. That gets the parents off the hook for trying. Okay, well, we tried to communicate. Didn't work. Kid's problem, not our problem. And it gets the kids off the hook. Well, I'd like to communicate with them, but it didn't work. So it's their problem. So parents believe it's a kid's problem. Kids believe it's a parent's problem, and the family chugs on. That's kind of where we are because it takes 2 salaries to get by. For the most part, unless you live very humbly, you need 2 full salaries to live to what you would like to be accustomed to, to have those 2 cars, not one. It's more convenient to have, this nice stuff, to buy nice clothes, to go on nice vacations. If you want to do these nice things, then 2 people need to work. And the kids come along as really so much baggage.
Right.
Anyway, that's why there are so many people who feel terribly insecure, particularly our women, because our culture just does not value children very much.
Right. Or women.
Or, well, people or individuals.
Everybody.
It doesn't value individuals
Right.
very highly. Individuals are part of a work detail. You and 10 other people have this big crank and you all pull on it together. And that's what you do. Okay, so you as 10 crank pullers that get this job done, well, that's valued by the company that's selling that, that skill or whatever the result of that is, that product. So yes, you're valued for what you do, but you're not valued for who you are. And there's a really big difference there. Kids can be valued for what they do. Oh, they can just be quiet and be seen but not be heard, pick up their rooms, be polite, and they'd be highly valued. Oh, Susie's a wonderful little girl. She doesn't bother us at all. So, but that's not really what's necessary. It's not what they do. You need to connect with them where they are, who they are, see them as they are. Talk to them when you're interested in their day. You really want to know what they did in that day and how they thought, whether they're going to grow up to fly or, climb mountains or fly airplanes or whatever it is they want to do. And if that's important to you, because they're important to you, then your kids will grow up feeling loved and cared for. Somebody cares about them. Somebody sees them. Somebody takes them serious as a little individual being, not just something that needs to keep their room clean and be polite. So it's a malaise that's all through our culture. And it was all through our culture 100 years ago, and it's all through our culture 200 years ago, and it's been like this for the last 10 millennia or more. It's just the way it is because the adults are busy trying to stay alive. The adults are busy trying to survive. Well, now that's not so much true. We have spare time now. Not a lot of it, but we have some spare time now. We don't go to work at 6 in the morning and come home at 10 o'clock at night. We do have some spare time. But before, when the men had very little spare time, the women stayed at home and were very close to their children. Did have time for their children, but we don't have that so much. So it's not just women working. I don't mean to make it sound like women working is the problem. That's not it. Women should work if they want to. That's a choice they have to make. But you can work, you can send your children to daycare, and when you are with your children, you can really be with them. You can really see them. You can really connect with them. And that's all it takes. It doesn't have to be all day long. It just has to be consistent. Even if it's only for 10 minutes a day, it has to really be consistent. And that's enough for them to hold on to. Now, for more, it might be better, but it's not necessary. But after you've worked all day, you really don't feel like putting out a whole lot of energy and effort because you're tired, you're beat. Your day has been full of stress. I mean, everybody's work is stress. Very few people, go to work and come back with less stress. Most people go to work and come back with more stress. And you're not ready to give at that point. You're ready to take. Well, that's the way it is. If you're really going to raise children that feel the love, you have to be ready to give, no matter how tired you are. That you have to really care about them and who they are at the being level, not just what they do at the intellectual level. Oh, they make good grades, they clean up their room, they are polite. What else is there? They're perfect kids. But are they secure? Do they feel really good about themselves? If you ask them, they'll tell you whatever they think is the right answer.
Right.
They're going to tell you whatever they think you want to hear.
Right.
Because if they say something you don't want to hear, oh no, that's going to be a problem.
I remember in school, and I mean, if we really want to make a change, yes, with the parents, but also with the school system. I remember I was in university and I don't know, I think I was in third year, but I just remember going, wow, they don't actually want us to be independent thinkers. They want us to follow what they believe. And that was it's like, wait a minute. Isn't that why we're going to higher education? Aren't we supposed to be able to have our own thoughts and beliefs? But it was so shocking to me. And then it's like, really the whole school system is set up for us to be followers because they're trying to teach us to be employees, not to be the employer. Because there's not that many employers, but there is a lot of employees. And it was like, wow, that's really sad. And it hasn't changed. Like it's not changing to help these kids. We're losing touch, but yeah, it's just
it's the same thing done at a higher age level. It's the same thing when it's a here are all the right answers. This is what you're supposed to believe. What that does is it devalues the person. You are not important.
Right.
It is important that you do what you're told, to learn what you're supposed to learn, to get these facts, and to have these beliefs. But again, we treat people like they're servants, like they're indentured servants that owe us their lives for some reason. It makes you feel valued if the person says, "Oh, well, this is a different idea." Right. Where did that come from?
Expand.
Tell us about that. Encourage the students to think for themselves. Give them credit being individual people. You know, that noise coming through, you're hearing banging or knocking. If you're not, then we're good to go.
We're good. Yeah. That's
My house is
the brilliant
noisy.
thing about Zoom.
Yeah, it's noisy, but Zoom's got it all under control.
It does.
All right. Well, if you hear some, let me know. I can
Okay.
probably stop it. Um, so anyhow, yeah, there are things that make people feel valuable and feel good about themselves,
Right.
having good ideas. They're coming up with a unique solution. Um, I can remember when my kids were in elementary school and they were supposed to do a bunch of addition and subtraction, and if they did it the wrong way but got the right answers, that was a problem. That was X'd out. No, you're supposed to do this. Here's the formula that we follow, and if you do it some other way, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that was just really sad.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I took my kids out of school. I homeschooled them because the schools were just not a good place to leave your children for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they didn't teach them much is only one of them. The whole social thing was not healthy. The whole thing was unhealthy.
Right.
So I got them out of school, and they were all much better for it. And all of them, as what 20 middle 20s, thanked myself and my wife for doing that.
Nice.
They realized the advantages that they had eventually. They didn't at first. Oh no, my friends, I'll miss all my friends. But they eventually said, yeah, that was great. We don't have we don't have the problems that our peers have.
Right.
We don't have those issues. We are much better off for not having been part of that dysfunctional society that is called a school. So yeah, it's a tough thing
It is.
raising kids today in this culture, because you not only have to be careful about how you are and that you actually do care about what they think and feel and their ideas and how they work the problem and so on. Not only do you give all that credence, even if it's wrong and you have to point out the logical errors in it, that's okay, but you listen to it first. You have to let them give you step by step, how they got there, and all the steps that are right deserve praise, and the ones that aren't deserve a correction later after he's told you about, what he did and what they got.
And you say, wow, that is a really creative way of looking at that.
Exactly.
That's an amazing creative mind that you have.
Nice things. And, no, your kids are not going to grow up spoiled and thinking they own the world just because you help them find positive things. That's not it at all. They see the world. They know. Mm-hmm. But they know that you care enough about them to try to make it, try to make their failures as easy as possible. They know when they failed, and when you're, giving them more credit than's due, they're aware of that. But they're also aware that it's because you care about them.
Right.
It doesn't make them. My kids all did very, very well. As adults, they've all done well. They're doing well with their families. They're doing well with their kids. They picked very well. As far as picking husbands and wives. Nice. They all were very good at sorting and picking. So they've got good families and happy, pretty well-adjusted kids. But it's hard to have well-adjusted kids in our culture, particularly if you send them off to school. It's very difficult. You have to work very hard at it. School is not a friendly place for children. Mm-hmm. Children go to school because that's where they get to hang out with their peers. It has nothing in their minds to do with education at all. They detest school. They don't like it. It's jail. Right. But the inmates get to hang out with each other, and that's what makes it palatable. That's what makes it worth going to. Yeah,
I loved school for the social aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly.
For the education, not so much, but for the social, loved it.
Yeah, that's the way almost all kids are. It's the social time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you ask, well, everybody just needs love. Well,
Right.
yeah, but it's not that simple.
Right.
Now, somebody feels insecure, and the way they're dealing with it is to shrink up and play the wilting violet, stay in the corner of the room, or they become bullies, or they push around, or they become arrogant, or they find power in some other way, that they look for their power in other ways. But you say, well, that person, that bully who is not nice to people, if I just went up and gave him love, that would fix him. No, it probably pick your pocket and then slap you, because you'd just be an easy mark.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not that simple.
Mm.
It's not that simple.
Well, it's
It's
simple. It's just not that easy.
well, yes, you're right. It is simple. It's just all about fear and love, right? It's
Right.
simple,
It's
but
simple.
those fears are ingrained and they're deep,
Hmm.
and it would take a long time of very positive behavior before that person could work that out. And most of us never work it out.
Right.
Most of us take those fears that we got when we were young and we carry them to the grave. We
And don't realize that there's anything wrong with that. Right?
now don't realize it's just the rest of the world
Yes.
was unpleasant. The rest of the world just didn't treat us very well.
Yes.
But yes, we do that. So it's really difficult to be helpful to somebody who doesn't see a problem and doesn't want to be helped.
Right.
And if you try to help them, that implies that, at least in your mind, they're
They're-
doing something wrong. There's something wrong with them. And right away, that hits a button, and they're going to push back and say, no, leave me alone. Who do you think you are? So how do you cure them? You start with the young kids
Mhm.
and try to do better at making them feel loved and cared for, and give them a lot of attention, even if you are tired.
Mhm.
But if you're self-centered, you'll find that hard to do.
Mm.
Because if you're self-centered, which means, you've got a bunch of fear. Okay. You have fear, so you're self-centered. And because you're self-centered, you don't give your children that much time. You say, run along and play. Mama's had a hard day.
Right.
Dad's busy.
I need a
Gotta
glass of
change the
wine.
oil in the car. Yeah. Right. Mama needs some wine. Right. So it, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So you have these fears. The fears make you self-centered. So you can't really be what you need to be for your kids. So your kids have inadequacies. They get fears. They get self-centered, and they don't have the time for their kids either. And so on it goes. So it's not something that you can say, oh, well, let's just fix this thing. It has to be a change of attitude
Right.
that's general among people, because the teachers don't really care about your kids either.
No.
Most of them. The young ones do when they come in all full of enthusiasm, but after about 5 years of that, they don't care anymore either, because nobody really cares about them as people. The school system doesn't care about them as people. It only cares that they do their job and they do it the way they're told.
Right.
So it's just the whole system's that way.
Right.
It's at work, it's that way for the parents, it's that way for the kids. All the school wants of those kids is to be quiet, do their work, do their homework, don't make trouble. That's it. But nobody really cares about them individually, only about their behavior. You see, but behavior is not really where the action is as far as growing up goes. It's not about behavior. It's about who you are. It's about being. You can't behave loved. You can't behave, as if you care. You can behave as if you care, but you can't feel love by behaving. It's internal. It's brain level stuff. And all we ever think about is behavior. You behave, and we don't give much credit or value to that inner being, that little person in there, whether you're an adult or a child, that little person in there who just wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be reckoned, wants to be accepted, wants to have value. wants to be valued by other people. And we don't really give a damn about that person. Suck it up, cupcake. Learn to smile whether you're happy or not and keep on trucking. Just get the job done. Don't make waves. So that's what's wrong with our culture. We're a fearful people. We raise fearful children who become fearful parents that raise fearful children. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard cycle to break. And it won't be broken like, in a decade. It's not like that'll turn over in a decade. It's going to take longer than that. And I think you have to start with the adult.
Yes.
And help the adult grow themselves up to the point that they're not so self-centered and they can see their children as little individuals who need to be seen and reckoned with as individuals, not just as little people who need to behave, who need to learn to behave. And if you behave, that's all that's required. Yeah. So
I often say lead by example. If you want your kids to be loving, happy kids, then be loving, happy adult. Lead by example. Start with you, because that's the only place we can change. We can't change somebody else, but we can change ourselves.
So we get back to the same old ending, don't we?
Exactly.
It's all about love and fear and changing ourselves at the being level.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's really, everything else in our society is a symptom of the problem. All the things we don't like, all the things we, that are despicable and unhealthy and kind of wrong with our society, those are all symptoms. They're not the problem. The problem is a low quality of consciousness amongst humanity. That's the problem. And until that average quality level raises, nothing is going to change. It won't change. Well, a lot of things will change, but it'll be all on the behavioral level. It'll be all on the intellectual level. Nothing will change underneath. And even if you can get people to act very civilly with each other because you demand good behavior, as soon as that civility gets removed by unusual circumstances, those people revert right back to to what they are. We see that now. You get 300 shoppers and they all want to buy the same stuff on sale. You end up with, half those shoppers turn into monsters, and act in ways they would never act if they were there by themselves. Things happen. That's a very thin veneer of civilization that we wear. And it's mostly imposed by our intellects. Because we're taught that that is the right way to be and the right way to behave. But if you go just a little bit under the skin, it's that same raw, insecure, unhappy person inside that will make self-centered choices because they've just never grown past that point. Not a happy viewpoint we're making here. It's not like everybody should be happy. It's unfortunate. It's a sad commentary, but it is the way it is. And if we're going to change it, then change yourself. You can't change anybody else, as you say. So get serious about changing yourself. Don't go, yeah, I should do that. But actually change yourself. Make an effort to do it. And part of the way you make an effort to not be so self-centered is to start caring about others. And if you have to, act it before you can be it, well, that's okay. Every little bit will help, but you can't just act it. You do eventually need to be it. But it's important, changing yourself. It's like, well, what's this one little me? It's not going to affect anything in the whole big world of 9 billion people. But that's wrong. The only way that 9 billion people will ever raise the quality of their consciousness is if individuals change themselves. because nobody can change anybody else. So if you don't change yourself, then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution.
Yeah.
Well, tough love today.
Well, sometimes we need it, right? Yeah.
That's about love, and all we need is a little bit of love, right?
Right.
That's not that's true, but it's something that's hard to do.
Mm.
People don't accept a little bit of love when they're feeling cranky and they're full of anger. You
Mhm.
can try to give them a little bit of love, but you push back. They won't trust, won't listen. So it's not an easy thing to share and you know really be nice to people. Why are you being nice to me? What do you want? Because in their own minds, that's why they would be nice to somebody, is because they'd want something. You see, so that's our culture, that's our society, and we bring up people to be just like us,
Right.
and we'll
Well,
keep bringing up people to be just like us. Solution: change us
right.
one at a time.
Yeah. I have faith that we're going to shift our energies and become
I
who
do
we're
too.
meant to be.
Yeah, I do too. I think we will grow up. I see the I see the pattern. We are growing up.
Yeah.
As bad as I just made it sound out that we were,
Yeah.
it was a whole lot worse
Yeah.
times past. There were lots of families that the children weren't even allowed to speak unless spoken to. That was seen as good behavior.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been a whole lot worse. So if you look back, we can pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, we're doing pretty good. We're coming right along. But if you look at how far we have to go, it's kind of a sad story. We could do so much better. But yeah, I agree. We'll get there.
Okay.
And the pace is picking up. We're growing more quickly. And the internet is helping. The internet creates a lot of dysfunction, but it creates a lot of value too.
There you go.
Just you and I can sit here and talk, and what, 10,000 people in a few months?
Right.
Well, you're listening to this, so you couldn't do that without internet,
Mm.
without a Zoom. So
Right.
all this technology, though it can be abused, it also can be used in very helpful ways. And it's those helpful ways that's finally going to solve our problem, I think. Enough people will learn enough to start making changes at a faster rate.
Mm.
And then the speed will pick up. And then just a decade from now, everything will be different.
Well, another very powerful talk, Tom. I liked it. I think as much as the message is strained, I think I think it's also a positive because you can't change somebody else, but we can change ourselves, and that's empowering no matter what we say. That has power to it because we can change ourselves. If we want to, if we're not happy with where we're at, we can change ourselves. We can get lower entropy. We can look at our fears. We can start challenging them and saying, "Hey, it's not us."
So,
All right.
yeah, I think it was a good show. A little
Yeah,
more somber and maybe not as much fun as some of our other shows, but that's important
important.
perspective.
We said
Yeah,
important together.
important perspective.
It is. All right. You've been listening to News for the Heart. We will be back next month. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell, and uh, all you need is love.
All you need is
How to
love.
grow up with love. Yeah. Thanks, Tom.